What is up, card fighters? BOTCG here, and before we get started into this commentated match, I felt like it was best if I commentated um, this first before I made any more videos on this type of format of play. This is a new format of play that I've been developing with my friends for like the past 2 weeks, and it's a four-player standard. It's a four-player standard Vanguard game, free for all. So it's basically last man standing wins. You can attack anybody. So I just felt like it would be best if I commentate over this and explain the rules as the game was going on. Which it's perfect because the chosen decks are decks that most people probably know about, maybe except for Tamayura. But I could briefly explain what the Tamayura player is doing. But yeah, man, this is a free for all game. Tamayura versus DRAJEWELED versus LUARD versus GANDEEVA. Let's go ahead and get into this game, guys. Now, the Tamayura player did win the die roll here, so the way we chose was that the winner of the die roll turn order then proceeds clockwise. So the Tamayura player goes first, and then the DRAJEWELED player, then the LUARD player, and then the GANDEEVA player goes last. Now, the Tamayura player going first doesn't draw off of their starter, but every other player on their first turn of the game draws off their starter for going second. So I'm gonna ride up here. I'm the DRAJEWELED player, and I'm going to draw for going second. And for the first turn of the game, when you ride up, if you are not the turn player, you have to swing. The only attack you can make with your Vanguard is to the previous player. So the only viable attack target I have now is the player one. Now we're moving on to the LUARD player here. They're going to discard, they're going to draw off the crest, and then they're going to draw off going second. And now the LUARD player can either attack me, or they can attack they can attack the Tamayura player here. So he attacks me with his Vanguard here, and then he's going to swing his rear guard column at the Tamayura player, and then pass his turn. Well, I'm sorry, I misspoke. You have to swing your Vanguard at the previous turn player. Per the rules, you have to swing your Vanguard at the previous turn player for the first attacking turn of the game. Unless you went first, because you don't attack. But any rearguard attacks can be swung at any other players that have made a game action before your turn. To swinging at the LUARD player here, because that's his only viable target. LUARD player guards. Tamayura player is going to ride up into grade 2 here. And now, because so the advantage of going first here is that the Tamayura player, not only do they get to grade 3 first, but now it is their second turn of the game. They can attack any of the other players, no restrictions. And another important rule that I should probably mention now during the gameplay is damage count does not end at 6 damage, it ends at 8 damage. So you need to deal 8 damage to an opponent or they deck out in order to defeat that opponent. And the last player in the game, obviously they're the winner of the game. So it's going to go on to my turn here. I am going to discard the ride, of course. And I do sorry for the shaky cam, guys. It is slightly off, but it was weird. I've never done anything like this before, so this is all very experimental. But again, this is my second turn now, and now I have free range on whoever I want to attack. Oh, and during your battle phase, you can, of course, like this has already happened, but during your battle phase, you can choose more than one player as an attack target. You know, unless it's the first turn of the game when your only viable attack target for your Vanguard is the previous player. I'm gonna have like a Google document of the rules. Of course, I'm gonna clean them up to make them more understandable and legible, but I am gonna put that in the description of this video. So I do decide 13 at player 4 here, the Gandeeva player, and he gets a defensive trigger here, which is very important to note because that's the first defensive of the game. So the rule of this 4-player format is when you get a defensive damage check trigger, you keep that trigger power until you reach your next turn. So we made this rule essentially so one player just couldn't get like rushed out of the game immediately, like super ganged up on. So he's gonna keep that trigger power for the rest of this turn cycle till it gets to his turn. I'm swinging at the LUARD player here. He one to passes me. Player's gonna ride to 2 here. And again, he can swing at anybody he wants right now since it's turn 2, and everybody has made a game action. Another important rule to go over when it comes to skills or effects that target other players or other players' units or rear guards or like cards, what have you, you have to choose an opponent before you are able to resolve that effect. So there's no blanket effects possible here. So he got a heal trigger there, the Tamayura player, and he's gonna keep that 10k until he reaches his next turn. So we're going on to the Gandeeva player here. So the easiest way to explain it: card effects of players that target an opponent and / or cards an opponent control must first choose an opposing player to target. And for column-like effects, because there is a card in the Gandeeva player's deck that cares about columns. For column, everyone's rearguard column for card effects count as opposing column for each player. And we're gonna go over when it goes to the LUARD player's turn. We're gonna go over stride rules. So swing 13 at the LUARD player here. And then he's going to swing 18 at the Gandeeva player here. Oh no, 18 at the LUARD player again. Oh no, was that 8? Oh no, it was 28 because of the trigger. My bad. So I'm going to ride up here, draw off of the discard, and then I'm going to soul charge and draw off of the ride line. Now my Vanguard, for example, the effect where on attack after I do its Soul Blast 4, if my opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets a crit. That effect only applies if I choose player 1 as an attack target for my Vanguard. I can't attack any of the other players and say, well, player 1's on grade 3, so this effect resolves. Again, I am going to have a document in the description or in the comments section, a very more etiquette or simplified versions of the rules, just so that they're not as confusing. But again, this is very experimental. Activating my Vanguard's ability here to draw a card. And of course, in the future, we're going to get this camera setup situated. Again, this is the first time I've ever done this. It was honestly quite exciting and enjoyable. Swinging at the Gandeeva player here. And another important rule to note is that each player can only guard when they're being attacked. So you can only guard for yourself. You can't guard for other players. So I am going to be attacking player 1 here. Resolving skills here to restand a rear guard. They take it. We get a heal trigger here. Oh, and another important rule to note here is for heal triggers. Wait, let me just read the rule so it's better to understand. Or do I still have that here? All card effects resolve based on targeted player. So right now, I'm targeting player 1 as an attack target, so my heal trigger only checks for player 1's damage count, none of the other players. The same applies to if in response, they damage checked like a heal, it only checks my damage count versus theirs. So I believe I swung 20 here at the GANDEEVA player. I was just trying to get everyone around the same damage count here. Didn't want anybody to be too low. And then I swung 23 at the LUARD player. So very important to go over here. What are the rulings for stride in a multiplayer format? So he's going to ride up to grade 3 here. And he is going to be able to stride because at least one other opponent is at grade 3 or greater, but he can only attack with his Vanguard opponents that are grade 3 or greater on his first stride turn. Yeah, players of strode can only attack opponents with Vanguards that are grade 3 or greater on the first stride turn, yes. And in order for a player to perform stride, at least one opponent needs to be grade 3 or greater. Again, I'm sorry guys, this is like a little bit hard to follow. I'm not sure what the best way was to do this. I'm thinking next time instead, it could be like a non-commentary video, and maybe it would be easier to follow that way. But right now, the LUARD player can only swing his Vanguard at the DRAJEWELED player or the TAMAYURA player. His rear guards can be swung at any other player on the board. So he's getting 5k off of that G-flip, superior call, and I believe he's targeting me for this attack, or targeting my Vanguard for this attack. So I take 1 damage here, I get a defensive draw, go to 23. He swings at the GANDEEVA player here. And he forgot he had another attack, so he's going to swing 28. I believe he ultimately decides to swing 28 again at the GANDEEVA player. Gandeeva player is going to ride up here. Their CB cost is reduced per their ride line. They're going to activate Best Harvest here. And then they're going to target the LUARD player because they have the most rear guards. So he's going to target a 3 and a 1 here. He only gets the 1, but he'll be able to draw 2 now and bind 2 cards. Now, this is funny enough to say in this situation here. Player 1, the Tamayura player and the Gandeeva player are actually returning players to Vanguard. They have not played Vanguard quite recently. The Gandeeva player in quite a while. We were actually helping him practice beforehand regular Vanguard before he could help us just hammer out the rules and regulations of this format. But we played 2 matches of this format, and after the 2 matches, he told us that, man, like, playing this is the most fun that he's had playing Vanguard, and playing Vanguard like this would actually get him to want to play Vanguard again. So he's going ahead and swinging at the LUARD player here, clearing off his board, drawing a couple cards in the process. Arguably, at least one of those bolt bringer columns should have went to the Tamayura player since they have no rear guards, and they would have benefited off of that grade 2. But again, he's a returning player, and he you know, it's not exactly incorrect for him to swing at the LUARD player here or any other player on board. Currently has 6 cards in bind zone, so his Vanguard's going to be 25. And he's going to swing 25 at the LUARD player here again. Real reason because was the Tamayura player and the DRAJEWELED player were both sitting at 23 because of defensive triggers. He's going to ride the other Tamayura here, grab an order card. Again, sorry for the glare, guys. I think for the most part, I got it really good. And then it's just like that little tinge corner for the Tamayura player. And they activate Persona Ride here. And then 5k from the original Tamayura. But a big inspiration for this format was a bunch of my friends have been recently playing a lot of Commander, and I played a little bit of Commander with them as well, and it's very enjoyable to watch. And hopefully I can get this little upstart to where it also is very enjoyable to watch. But it's just you get to see and play decks that normally you wouldn't be able to see, like Vanguard games right now, at least for standard. They're just so fast. Things end by like turn 4, turn 5, turn 6 the latest, to whereas, you know, we were able to create a format to whereas, you know, all the players, they left the game quite satisfied after playing this format, because there was not a single player that just didn't get the opportunity to participate in the game, get to grade 3, to feel like they actually played and had stake in this game. So he attacks me with his Vanguard here. I go to 4. I know it's a little bit hard to see with my black sleeves. Now remember, you die at 8, so the maximum amount of damage you could take before death is 7. And I got a heal trigger here, which was clutch. Puts me back to 4, and I'm 33. And now he swings at the GANDEEVA player. Because that's just, it's a very interesting game progression, to whereas, you know, you don't necessarily just have like dead attacks or like weak attacks, where your opponent basically gets to block for free or doesn't get to block at all, because there's always going to be somebody else that you could hit. So we're right up to grade 4 here. Call out Rock Gore from Soul. And you know, like I said, we created this format together, and even me myself, like, you know, I made mistakes, I made miscalculations, because I proceed to do this whole turn thinking that I can kill the LUARD player, like I can kill a player here. Or not proceed to do the whole turn, but my goal is to give the LUARD player like at least a couple damage points, and then there's a point where he has like 1 card in hand or 0 cards in hand, and I thought I could kill him, but again, you die at 8 here, you don't die at 6, so it was just a miscalculation on my part, which I thought was quite hilarious. I swing this at the LUARD player here. I'm gonna swing at the Tamayura player here. And then I'm going to swing my Vanguard at the LUARD player here. Which, you know, now that like death is at 8 and not at 6, like you could equate 4 life to half your life total. Which, that's what it is. It's half your life total. So he's gonna perfect guard the Vanguard here. He's gonna go to 1 card in hand, and I get a critical trigger here, and I think, oh, I got a critical. He's at 4. I can kill him here. No, you can't, bro. I miscalculated so hard. I hit him for like 28 here. He takes it, draws a card, and then I hit him for like 45 with a crit here, which we counted it in the middle of the game, and it was literally after he took the damage. It's like, damn, bro, I'm sorry. I didn't know you would still be alive. Because if I knew that, I wouldn't have given him so much damage. I would have spread it around the table, because now I've made a direct enemy of the LUARD player because I've given him so much damage. So on the crackback, he's gonna try and give me as much damage as possible, which then leaves me vulnerable to the other 2 players at the table. Like, I've put the LUARD player in a very bad position here because he is at 7 and he has very low cards in hand. But, you know, again, the LUARD player just targeting solely me for attacks here also puts me in a very bad spot, because it essentially puts both of us very close to death, to whereas we can just get picked off by the other players. He was debating where he wanted to call his rear guards here off of his stride skill. In this downtime, what other rules have I not gone over yet? Players will keep damage check trigger powers till they start their turn. Alright, so he's going to start attacking me now. He's swinging at me for 18. I guard for 20k. No, I believe I've gone over all the rules that we had written down. He's gonna be able to do 6 attacks here, I believe, or 5 attacks. Yeah, 5 attacks. Swinging at me with his Vanguard here. I believe I just take it because I'm at 4. Which arguably I should have perfect guarded the Vanguard, but then I would be out the perfect guard because I only had 1 to my name. And now I am at 6 damage. Which something that's actually, I'm actually at 7 damage now. Crazy. Something that's actually quite funny in retrospect of this format, the overtrigger doesn't feel that bad. Like in 1v1, the overtrigger can feel like devastating, game changing, but when we're doing like a 4-player format like this, and it doesn't have to just be 4 players, it can theoretically be more than 4 players. The overtrigger doesn't seem that game breaking as normally as it would be. GANDEEVA player persona ads here. And also another interesting thing was during the match, which I really wish I was able to just like show you guys the match with audio without being able to explain it. Like in the future we are going to just do that, but there was quite a bit of politicking to whereas, oh, don't target me for that, you should target him because this, that, and the third. Oh, you shouldn't attack me, you should attack him, this benefits you more. Or like, hey, like the first game we had, I actually made a deal with a player to where it's like, hey, if I don't attack you this turn, will you not attack me next turn? And you know, it's just I just found the politicking aspect quite interesting. That's something that you would get in a 4-player game, a multiplayer game versus just a 1v1. So basically, the GANDEEVA player's goal here is to kill at least one of us. He's gonna kill either the LUARD player, or he's gonna kill the DRAJEWELED player. And then we were just discussing how he should order his attacks and like what benefits him the most to attack what player. Because I was trying to get him not to attack me, but he was gonna attack me. He's gonna swing at the LUARD player here. Again, it was the politicking of which player is the scarier threat if you leave them alive. I was trying to say that the LUARD player is a scarier threat if you leave them alive because of the G zone. They were trying to say that I was a scarier threat, but I was telling them, oh man, I don't really have much in hand here. That was like an interesting aspect that I really did enjoy from Commander. That like, it doesn't really it comes up quite a bit more in Commander than it actually does in like Vanguard, playing in like a multiplayer format. because you really only have like for targeted effect, like you can only really politic based on targeted effects or who you're going to attack or who you can attack. And he attacks me here, I take the damage, and I get the over trigger. So this means I get that plus 100 million until I reach my next turn. So basically I am untouchable right now unless another player checks their over trigger offensively. But when you're playing in a 4-player game like this, it doesn't really make sense to like, you're not forced to try and chance and basically waste your turn if you don't get it, your own over trigger on your drive checks. So basically now he can just attack the other players and he doesn't like lose his turn because of the over trigger. That's what this is like one of those situations where I was saying the over trigger doesn't feel as game breaking or as unfair when it is checked. So he does swing at the LUARD player here. He does give him a 2 to pass. And we're just telling him how the Flame General card worked. Now he's going to attack the LUARD player again. And then basically he didn't know about how D perfect guards work, so we were explaining to him basically how D perfect guards worked in this scenario, and that basically changed how he wanted to attack. Because we know that the LUARD player has 2 perfect guards in hand because we saw them get drive checked, and he was initially going to attack the LUARD player here, but now he's more incentivized to attack the TAMAYURA player here because the LUARD player isn't the biggest threat at the table because he can die so easily. And he can't attack the DRAJEWELED player because he has it's 100 million on defense. So he chooses here to actually attack the TAMAYURA player and try to put some damage on the TAMAYURA player. Which TAMAYURA player just takes it, goes to 6 here, draws for turn, rides up. Doesn't have any targets in the deck, but that's fine because you can also grab from drop zone. Oh, and another thing that I found out while playing this format is that because this format is inherently not as fast as standard is right now, if your deck already goes through the deck a lot, already draws a lot, you don't necessarily, like you do in the current format, want to play draw triggers on top of it, on top of all that, because like, you know, the game goes so fast you'll never deck out, you'd rather have the extra draws. You can actually play front triggers and not get punished. So he's going to use a skill here to put one of my rear guards to soul, and then I kind of told him that those rear guards don't really do anything, which was true. So instead he chooses to target the GANDEEVA player for that ability. Oh no, he chooses to target no player for that ability, never mind. He chose to just save the soul. So he's attacking the GANDEEVA player here for the sole reason of that the LUARD player isn't a threat. He can't attack the DRAJEWELED player, so the only remaining threat that he can actually just try and take care of here is the GANDEEVA player. And what I mean by the LUARD player isn't a threat here is because by the end of his turn, because he isn't attacking the LUARD player here, I'm basically forced on my turn to attack the LUARD player some number of times until they die. Because if I don't, you know, I put the LUARD player in this situation and I'm the closest to death after the LUARD player. So they're going to try and put some pressure on me on the crackback. And I would basically just die on the crackback. So he's exuding all his pressure to the GANDEEVA player here, which is smart. he doesn't heal here because Tamayura player was already at 6 and he was at 5 when he took that damage. So I do get it to my turn here. My deck is very low here because of the draw triggers, but I do make it to my turn here, which is funny because I play 3 and all 3 resolved this game. Play double Rocker Gore here. Going straight to combat here, activating my Vanguard's ability. Choose to put 2 crits to soul here. Have 4 more different grades. 15 to the front row. Swing at the LUARD player. Swing again at the LUARD player. They get a defensive heal here, which is really bad for me because now it means I'm gonna have to expend a 3rd attack on the LUARD player. But I'm gonna go ahead and attack the GANDEEVA player here, which he then uses his Elementaria here, which in hindsight, I knew he had that, so maybe I should have attacked the Tamayura player instead of the GANDEEVA player. I go ahead and attack the LUARD player again here. And then I attack the Tamayura player here, I believe. And they just take the damage and they go to 7 here. And I am at 6. I have 2 cards left in deck. And it's the GANDEEVA player's turn. So I basically, if he doesn't kill me here, I die basically to the next player no matter what. I was trying to like needle nose my way into another turn. I wouldn't be able to attack with my Vanguard, but I had the 2 servant girls. I had 2 servant girls in hand that I could make them 45k attackers with the Vanguard's ability and the 2 grade 4s in my drop zone. And then we were talking about who he should target for his retires. I was telling him he should target the Tamayura player because even if he doesn't retire it, he'll still get a draw. Versus if he targets me, like he's more likely to get 2 retires off on my board, and then he'll get nothing. But of course, the Tamayura player was like, "Nah, you want to target him, bro." Like again, you know, the politicking was a clutch. I think he was counting his triggers here. And then he was saying how he's going to attack me with his Vanguard because I'm at lower damage than him. So I would give him a heal. Or I'm at same damage as him, towards if he drive checks a heal trigger, he can heal. Versus if he attacks the Tamayura player, if he drive checks a heal trigger, he can't heal. Or I think we were still talking about GANDEEVA's skill here, and then they were counting how many units and what grades he's currently seen. Ultimately, he decides to target the Tamayura player here. He does able to kill it, but even if he doesn't kill it, he would still get to bind and draw. I don't believe he can multi-attack here, unfortunately. So he's stuck with 3 attacks, and he has to attack at least once at me. Again, for future references and future videos, again, this is very experimental. The video format's experimental. The format's very experimental. We are gonna have more videos like this in the future with like decks that act like your pet favorites can be played in this format without fear, and you'll be able to do your turn, resolve your turn. Like Tamayura, like normally Tamayura would be able to. It wouldn't have made it this far, normally. Wouldn't have made it this far. Even Gandeeva in this current format with how fast it is wouldn't have made it this far. And like look at them now. Like they're basically gonna be the last 2 players of this game. So he does get an over trigger here. So he's giving 100 million to his Vanguard, and he restands the Vanguard here. And then the Tamayura player was trying to get him to give the 100 million to rear guard, cause so the Tamayura player damaged like 3 perfect guards, and he was trying to tell the table that he had no perfect guards in hand, which would most likely be true, but I believe he drove check 1, and the Gandeeva player knows he drove check 1, so he's like, nah bro, I know you drove check 1. That was his second draft check, and then he's gonna swing at me. I don't have any perfect guards, so I have to take it, and that last 2 damage was literally the last 2 cards in my deck. Poetic Justice, man. Tamayura player does not have Persona right here, but you know, they still got plays, man. The Gandeeva player can only take 1 damage here because they're at 6, and then I was just telling the table about my strategy if I did survive another turn, which is very unlikely, but definitely after this match I was like, man, them draws gotta go, gotta put them in for fronts. So he's gonna get 6 attacks here, thanks to one of the grade 2 Shoujo Doji promos in the bind zone right now. So he isn't gonna get just the 5 attacks, he's gonna get 6 attacks here. So this attack right now is attacking him for 23. And then we were just going over how many possible attacks he can do here and what combination, which ultimately really depended on how he guarded. But the Gandeeva player does decide to take the first one, which wasn't incorrect either, because the Tamayura player is swinging at him for 21, or not 21, 23, like at least 3 more times. So taking the first one isn't necessarily incorrect here. So he takes it here, no defensive unfortunately. Then he's going to swing for 28 here I believe. He guards for 15 and a 5. Vanguard is currently 31. Oh no, the other column was also 23, never mind. So the Vanguard is 31 here because they got the 5k power up from the last attack. cards 43, so that's 2 to pass here. I believe after counting triggers, there was like somewhere between like 4 or 5 triggers in his deck, and then there was like 7 cards left in his deck. But ultimately he decides to give it to the rear guard. Swings boosted, so this is going to be 33 with a crit. Guards for 38. Counter charge, and then he's going to counter blast, call out that grade 2. Then he's going to swing for 23 here. And it was, he had only like 10k guard left. Yeah, it was 10k guard, or he could only guard the weaker column. He couldn't take the stronger column. Or he can only guard the stronger column, he couldn't take the weaker column. But yeah, guys, let me know what you thought about this in the comment section down below, man. This is again, this is something very experimental that I'm currently working on with a couple friends right now. So you are gonna see more content like this in the future, in addition to the content that we normally do on this channel. But yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. We're really close to that 1K mark. Maybe this will be like one of those things that helps get me there, because this is just something brand new that nobody else is really bringing to the table right now. But anyways, guys, y'all have a great night. Later.